welcome to the Think Like a Teacher podcast. Today, our guest is Miss B. Hurd, an art teacher at West Jordan High School. Just go ahead and introduce yourself.
Yeah, my name's B. Hurd. Go by Miss B with the kids. I teach drawing, sculpture, and IB art, which is like a college level art class.
Awesome. So I'm interested why people choose to teach, because it's not necessarily an easy job. So what was your path to get here?
It's actually kind of funny because my whole family's teachers. And so up until I was like 22, vehemently against being a teacher. Like it was an awful idea. But I graduated during COVID, so the job market was like nothing. And I became a teacher just for the money and then ended up loving it.
Oh, okay. So what are some of the things why you didn't want to be a teacher versus what you found to love?
I feel like, well, one, my whole family did it, so I think it was like the little bit of rebellion, like not wanting to do the family trade, but also just the fear of teenagers, because I definitely fell for the trope that teenagers are monsters, which some are, but like there's a good select ones that make it worth it.
No, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. So just once you were here, you realized, okay, this is
Yeah,
actually pretty good.
teenagers are just like older toddlers. They're still cute. They still want to show you their new shoes.
Yeah.
And it's fun to just like hang out and like draw with crayons with them all day.
Yeah.
Because I feel like it's the only job you can like hang out with 15-year-olds and like make paper mache for 8 hours.
Yeah, I have found that. So even teaching science, that like doing silly little things with them, they still like to do. And so, for example, like the first week of school, I have these game show buzzers, and we played a game. And they liked it because they lit up and they made sounds. And the prize for winning was you get a pull from the prize box, which was like stupid little like the pop things and spinners.
I love
and
that.
Like scratch and sniff stickers. They still go nuts for scratch and sniffs. And so I think you're right in that understanding that teaching secondary is really, we're still teaching kids, even though they look like they have adult-sized bodies.
Yeah.
They're still kids.
They're just teeny boppers.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do a similar thing. I did Jeopardy, and they went bonkers. And I have a bucket that I call Miss B's bucket of tummy yum yums. So
What's
they
in the bucket?
get ramen, hot Cheetos, lots of teenage diet, cereals, Pop-Tarts.
Nice. The classics.
The classic teenage pyramid of food. Yeah.
That's fun. So as you're kind of like maybe reluctantly coming into teaching, finding out that it's actually cool, but what were some of the big struggles for you, or were there any coming into teaching?
Gosh, all struggles. I think the biggest one is motivation, because our kiddos are coming out of COVID, and like they spent middle school like online. So like I'm very enthusiastic about art, and so it's hard for me to meet them on their level and like get them to like art as much as me. So that's been a learning process.
Okay.
Classroom management, of course, but I think that's easier than I thought it would be when I came in. But mostly just motivation and getting the kids to realize that art is important.
Oh, yeah. So what are you finding is like their motivation level? What are they not doing, or what are they doing?
The work ethic is hard. I think they like to do the bare minimum. So getting them excited and wanting to do stellar on their project. I haven't quite solved it yet, but I found focusing on like multicultural, like specifically bringing in culture from like art from their own culture has helped a lot. So I do a lot of like Mexican artists, Polynesian artists, etc.
Nice.
That gets them a little bit more excited.
Yeah, and so I would imagine like for me, when I see things that are more relatable to me, I'm more apt to be like, oh, I already know this. I already know those things. So if there's like common shapes or themes or ideas or art types, they're probably more apt to say, hey, that's in my house. That's
yeah,
my people.
And I feel
could
like
make that.
So much of education already is just like old white guys that anytime you
can't no, you're right though.
Anytime you can mix it up from that type of person, I think gets their interest.
Yeah. Because we forget sometimes when we're just in lesson plan mode, these are the standards we have to teach, this is the skill they have to learn. We sometimes forget that they have their own personalities and their own strengths and their own world that they bring with them. And so I really love that you try to capitalize on them, seeing them individually.
Yeah, I've also started a thing where like my more talented, skilled students can like teach a lesson. So I've
Okay.
had some that are so popular they've lasted all class. Like I had a Samoan student teach their tribal patterns.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so students
Super
who
cool.
want to and are skilled enough can teach a lesson. It has to be 30 minutes, but I've never had one go just 30 minutes.
So you find they go longer
Oh
than
yeah,
that?
most of them go the whole class.
Wow.
Yeah, and I just get to sit at my desk and watch them teach each other.
How does that feel as a teacher, like realizing that you've created this situation for them where they feel safe and comfortable enough to also teach?
It's honestly amazing, especially because most of the kids who teach, like, I have a stronger relationship with, so they tend to be the ones I had last year.
Mm-hmm.
And seeing them, like, grow into little teachers themselves, it's very adorable.
That's cool.
Yeah,
So it causes me to wonder now, how, because our classes are long,
long.
they're like
yeah.
90 minutes. What is your strategy for starting things off? What does the beginning, those first 15 minutes look like in Miss B's classroom?
So I like to use the first 15 as a lesson completely unrelated to what we're going to learn.
Oh, interesting.
Because I think 90 minutes on one topic, even for an adult, is just mind numbing. So sometimes it's art. Like I like to go onto YouTube and find like little videos of artist statements. But mostly it's random things. So I've done things from how to root plant cuttings to how to do a sourdough starter to some social emotional learning like managing school stress. One time I did like basic study skills because all of our kids were in middle school during COVID, so they didn't learn that. So it's like a 15-minute micro lesson.
Okay. And have you noticed, is this something you've always done, or is this something you started recently
That's
doing?
something I started last year. My first year I did like what teachers tell you to do, like a review or a pre-assignment.
Okay.
I just find the kids do not check into those.
Gotcha.
And I'd rather do reviews in the lesson than right when they come in. I also think just starting the class on a fun random note just like gets them excited.
Okay. So my next question is, we have, I think there's across the nation problems with attendance.
Oh, yeah.
Do you find that because your lessons at the beginning maybe aren't tied to your content, do kids still come on time because they're like, oh, I wonder what the new thing is? Or do they think, I don't need to be there, it's not about art?
I think I've seen better attendance since starting that.
That's
because it's like weird lessons. Like one that's a hit is I teach kids how to draw a duck randomly and then they have to draw themselves as a duck. That is a hit. I've had that starter last 20 minutes before.
Wow.
Yeah, they like to draw themselves as a duck. I also don't let the starter points be make-upable, so there's a little bit of pressure. Yeah.
Gotcha. So it still is tied to their grade, this activity that you do at the beginning, but it's more of this building relationships, making the environment.
I think it like
inviting.
gets them to like me more because I'm not like an art robot to them.
Yeah.
I have like a whole personality and life.
Yeah.
And so just like
You don't live at the school in
Yeah.
the art studio.
yes, seriously. I leave my classroom. So getting to like I love baking and plants. So getting to like show a whole personality of mine and like hobbies, I think gets them to like me more and they want to come to class.
Yeah.
Also, like, not every kid wants to be an artist, so I think having 10 minutes or 15 minutes at the start where it's not just art is a little refreshing.
Yeah. Well, I wonder if also this is kind of like disguising art.
Yeah.
Because really all of the things that you mentioned, like plant cuttings or sourdough starters or drawing themselves with a duck, all of these different things, I mean, that's the
It is all
inspiration
art.
for many artists. Like, oh, you love plants. I would imagine a lot of your art might center around nature or plants.
Yeah, so one big theme in my classroom over all my classes is that everything and anything can be art. So that is one thing of the starters that usually I'll end the last minute with being like, oh my god, we made sourdough starter. Can sourdough be art? Like my partner is actually a person who went to art school and then culinary school. So food art, I've shown them plant art. I've shown them how like the social emotional learning can help them in school and their art.
Interesting.
So I do try and tie
Yeah.
it to art because I do think all of this does play into a cohesive art practice.
Yeah, because I feel like art is really expressing your experience with the world in
Mm-hmm.
which you live. And so being more aware of just
Mm-hmm.
random things like, oh, I wonder. That makes me
Yeah.
wonder. So in an art class, I feel like that's very
I
fitting.
also think. Oh, sorry, did I interrupt?
No, no, go for
I
it.
also think artists who just stay in the like quote unquote art world are less fun artists and less diverse artists.
Hmm.
So I'm big on finding your inspiration all over. Like a hike can be your inspiration, the kitchen can be your inspiration,
Yeah.
sitting on the couch watching Netflix can be inspiration. So I'm pro getting them out of the studio, at least in their mind,
Right.
and thinking about the whole world can influence your art.
Yeah. That reminds me of there's a photographer that I follow who does a lot of his like vlogs of like, here's the places that I go do photography. And he was recently at arguably one of the most beautiful mountain ranges on planet Earth, of the Swiss Alps.
Mhm.
And he's like, I'm really excited to be here. It's a 3-day camping trip. We're hiking. We're doing these things. But he started like, he had a knee problem and was just kind of grumpy while he was out there. And the whole trip, one photograph, and that's his livelihood, is taking pictures, being a photographer. And so he was really like kind of down on himself, like, this is like this whole thing, all of the money and the time that I got to be here, I only got one photo. And then his next kind of update was like, all right, I'm doing it wrong. I've been doing photography wrong, because really it doesn't matter where you are.
Yeah.
It matters like what's going on up here. Like, is your mind in the right place? And he just had like a fun little photography adventure right outside his backyard, like in his local spot, and made a few really great images. And he's like, all of the difference was just my mindset being
That ties
in that.
into my theme this year. I try to pick a theme every year because I
Okay.
get bored. But this year is sustainable and accessible. So I'm a
Gotcha.
big proponent of you don't need the fancy gadgets and the money and the studio to be an artist,
Right.
which definitely ties into that because I think kids a lot of the time get discouraged because you need like the $50 set of pencils. And if you want to be a photographer, you need that like thousands of dollar camera.
Right.
So all of my lessons this year are hopefully cost $0 to like $5. Most of them are made out
Oh.
of garbage or like collected things. I'm trying to get away from like fancy tools.
Okay.
Yeah,
Cool.
trying to get.
And so you're also teaching sculpture. Is this the first year you're
This
doing
is
that?
the first year. I fought for that.
Nice. Well, that's exciting. So what are some of your plans with your, I'll call it garbage theme. It's not
It's
really a
garbage
garbage
art,
theme,
yeah.
but it's garbage art. So kind of what's your hope for students with this year's theme?
I think my hope would be that everyone feels like they can do art. Because I grew up a poor little girl wanting to be an artist, and I felt a lot of walls, especially like the art world is very white and very wealthy. And so I grew up with like a lot of my peers were quite wealthy and affluent and had a lot more things than I could.
Yeah.
So I don't want my students to feel how I did when I was a teenager in art school. Like you can just like one project we're doing is soda cans. I'm just making them cut it up and make metal sculptures. So like
Cool.
collect garbage, become a hoarder, and make yourself some art. Or in my IB class, we're doing homemade paper made out of old assignments that I'm shredding.
Oh, okay.
So it's like also an eco-friendly vibe happening.
Gotcha. Have you invited them to bring in their old assignments? What if they use
Oh,
current
yeah.
assignments? They like take my assignments and
I
shred them?
had one kid, I got worried. She shredded her math homework that she hadn't done yet, but
Oh,
she was ready.
all right. She was ready to move on.
I don't
from
know if I
math.
would advocate for that, but she did it.
Yeah. How interesting. Very cool. So it seems like teaching has been a surprising career for you. Like it wasn't something you thought you would like. You ended up liking it. And now you're creating these really cool and meaningful,
Yeah.
impactful like experiences. I wouldn't call them lessons. I would maybe say they're experiences for students
Yeah,
to.
it's very experiential.
Yeah. How fun.
Yeah, well, it's funny because I've always been a teacher, I think, in spirit. Because I always taught my peers, and I was like a woodshop tech in art school.
Gotcha.
So I would teach the underclassmen how to do stuff. So it kind of came naturally. And
Yeah.
for me, my art practice is definitely community based. So it's funny that I didn't want to be a teacher because teaching and experiencing with people is very integral to my own practice.
Yeah.
So I found my art career and my teaching career definitely meshing and blurring.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's really fun.
So it's all just who Miss B is.
It's all just Miss B.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. What advice would you have for teachers that may be struggling to find their thing for like that first 15 minutes? Because like you said, not everybody resonates with the, all right, we're going to review and do a quiz. And so what would you say for teachers that are like, I don't know how to use this 15 minutes. Classes are super long.
I think I would just recommend have fun with it. Like, I think all the teachers I find that don't seem like they like their job are just so serious. And I think at the end of the day, it is just high school and these are kids. So, like, some content is very important to learn, but that doesn't mean you can't have fun.
Yeah.
And get them out of the textbook world. Like, get them viewing your content outside of a classroom mindset. I think it's
Awesome.
the biggest thing that has gotten my kiddos to learn.
I think that's really powerful, is that it is giving ourselves perspective of what this is for students. That it is important, and we do want them to succeed, and we want them to learn things, but they are really at the end of the day just things, and it is just high school. There's a whole world ahead of them, and having that perspective of, hey, they're kids. Let's have fun. Give them a scratch and sniff sticker. Let them make art out of garbage. Let's do the things that they want to do, and still kind of trick them almost into realizing, holy moly, I learned a ton in Miss B's class. And I thought that we were just playing the whole time, and then probably reflecting like, wow, this was a really impactful year.
Yeah, I think the more you can trick kids into learning is the best. You gotta be a little trickster.
A little bit.
A little, yeah.
But like the nice kind of tricks.
The nice tricks that end up with hot Cheetos at the end. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, well, this has been insightful. I have loved this conversation. This is Think Like a Teacher, the podcast where we talk to teachers, educators from around the world, really, about best practices, how to make our job easier, more creative, and have a bigger impact. Thank you very much for joining us. And
chasing stars and holding you. I can't see the end, but we'll see it.